Hello, my name is Jeff Hoagland, and I am a content creator who's been producing daily Marvel Snap content here on YouTube, as well as live streaming on twitch.tv every single day since Marvel Snap released last year. I could not be more excited to be bringing you the breakdown for this month's brand new Season Pass card, Daken. In my opinion, Daken looks to be the most interesting and potentially fun Season Pass card Marvel Snap has ever had, with the deck building ideas that can go into it. So at a 3-4 baseline, when Daken enters play, you get an on-reveal effect, adding the Muramasa Shard to your hand. This shard is a 1 energy, 1 power card that when it is discarded or destroyed, Daken's power gets doubled. I say Daken is potentially the most interesting Season Pass card Marvel Snap has ever had, because while we've had other cards in the past like MODOK or Silver Surfer that had very clear deck building restrictions around them, Daken's restrictions are multiple here, having synergy with both discard and destroy effects, and also working well with things that increase his power, such as Forge or Nakia. There are a lot of different directions to potentially explore with this card as we search for optimal deck ideas. In today's video, I'm going to walk you through not just one, not just two, but 7 different baseline deck ideas where I am excited to give Daken a try. Let's go ahead and jump into it. We're going to start things off today with a fairly accessible deck list containing all cards from Series 1, 2, and 3, plus our shiny new Daken from the Season Pass. This little destroy deck contains all cards that cost 3 energy or less, in addition to Death, who makes herself cheaper over the course of the game, eventually getting all the way down to free if everything goes according to plan. Daken finds himself at home in a deck list like this because there's no shortage of ways to blow up that shard and double his power. We have Killmonger, Venom, Deathlock, and Carnage that can all clear it off of the board, and then Forge as well as Nova here both synergize with Daken as well, letting us increase his power before we double it up to make it an even more impressive stat line. In an average curve game, you can play Forge on turn 2, which makes your Daken 6 power on turn 3. We then blow up the shard, effectively paying only 4 energy for something that has 12 points of stats, incredibly above rate compared to the average other 4 energy card in Marvel Snap. Past Daken and Death, who we mentioned earlier, this deck has a variety of other payoffs for blowing our cards up as well. Deadpool works quite well with Nova and Forge as well. If we can kick his power up before we start doubling, he gets quite big quite quickly. We have Bucky Barnes that leaves behind a 6-power Winter Soldier when he gets destroyed, and we have Wolverine that gets bigger and regenerates every single time you try and take him off of the board. If you're someone that prefers to go big with the Daken Destroy strategy, this next deck list is the one for you. Looking to go a little bit higher up the curve, playing cards as expensive as Nimrod here that can also be big Destroy payoffs. We're playing cards like Magic to give us a 7th turn to leverage these more expensive cards, and things like Wave to play them out ahead of time on turn 4. This deck list also gets to leverage freshly buffed Absorbing Man from our most recent over-the-air update, who can not only provide an extra copy of something like Venom to destroy up our cards again, but you can play Absorbing Man on turn 4 following up a Daken to give you a 2nd shard in hand, so you can double your Daken up not just once, but twice, getting all the way up to 16 points of power on your 3 energy play. Moving along to the second deck building direction Daken encourages us to explore, we have the Discard Collector variation that can take fantastic advantage of him. For those not familiar with this archetype, you have Morbius and Collector here at the bottom end of our curve that profit when we discard our cards. Morbius directly profits from the number of cards we discard, and Collector gets value from the specific cards we're going to be discarding. Swarm generates copies of itself with Power Up the Collector. Apocalypse puts itself back in our hand, which powers up the Collector, and Helicarrier generates 3 cards at random, which again powers up the Collector. Daken also works well with both of these cards. That shard that gets generated powers up our Collector by 1, and when it gets discarded, it fuels Morbius as well. Because this deck is frequently discarding the entirety of its hand when MODOK has his on-reveal effect, Daken essentially ends up being an 8 power, 3 energy play in our deck's average draw, which is incredibly above rate for the average 3 energy card. Our next deck idea looks to explore another direction of synergizing Daken with the Collector, and that is leveraging Moon Girl in the mix as well, who on reveal duplicates the entire contents of our hand. This means if we play Collector out on 2, Daken on 3, and then we duplicate that shard from Daken on 4 with Moon Girl, we can double up Daken not just once, but twice, getting him all the way up to 16 stats. The destroy synergies that we need to enable Daken also work incredibly well with Deadpool at the bottom end of the curve in this deck. Deadpool doubling his power and returning to our hand whenever he gets blown up also triggers the Collector and works well with things like Nova and Forge that power up Daken as well. Should a Deadpool get exceptionally large in the first few turns of the game, Moon Girl can also double that up, giving us multiple large, cheap things to play out on the final turn of the game in a way that's going to be difficult for our opponent to predict. America Chavez at the top end of this deck serves the function of essentially letting us draw from an 11-card deck for the first 5 turns of the game. This is really valuable in a deck like this one that's looking to play specific cards in the early turns of the game to have those cards more consistently. In our best draws, we're likely going to be using Moon Girl to duplicate our hands in the late turns anyways, meaning we're frequently not even going to draw Chavez on that 6th turn of the game. Moving along, no set of deck ideas exploring a new 3 energy card in Marvel Snap would be complete without at least one Silver Surfer deck list, the ultimate payoff for building your deck full of 3 energy cards in the game. Silver Surfer deck lists have essentially always had at least a small destroy sub-theme, thanks to the prevalence of Killmonger's power in the format, wiping out all 1 energy cards. In the past, they've only had Nova to leverage as a payoff for this on their side of the board. With Daken as well, it gives them a second. Daken in this deck list isn't doing anything fancy. You're essentially just being able to enable that shard being destroyed essentially for free with your Killmonger, giving you a large 3 energy card that has 8 or potentially even 10 power if a Nova's getting blown away as well. Our last couple of deck lists today are definitely playing in the deep end of the pool, but stay with me for a moment. I promise you there's some very sweet overlapping synergies in what they have going on, starting with this Surfer Phoenix Daken Destroy deck. The Phoenix strategy, for those that don't recall from last season, revives one of your previously destroyed cards and merge with it. The best thing to be doing with this is blowing up a copy of Multiple Man with a 3 energy card such as Venom or Deathlock, and these destroy synergies are cards that enable Daken by blowing up the shard as well. Another phenomenal piece of overlapping synergy that this deck list had with Daken is the use of Hulkbuster. Hulkbuster, being attached to Multiple Man, gives us basically a backup Phoenix Force to get other 8-power Multiple Men and start sliding them around the board. Hulkbuster has good synergy with Daken as well. If we attach the Hulkbuster to Daken before we blow up that shard, Daken starts at 9 power and then doubles himself all the way up to 18. And then obviously Silver Surfer ties the whole room together, since this deck is just a mess of 3 energy cards to begin with, so we can make them all bigger on that final turn of the game on the back of this deck's namesake. Our final deck list of the day is another Phoenix Force variation that's choosing to eschew the small Silver Surfer package we had in the previous deck list to lean harder into the movement strategies as well as what the Destroy package can offer. We have Forge here as another way to make Multiple Man and Daken bigger before we start making copies or doubling them up. We have Heimdall at the very top end of our curve, as well as Iron Fist at the bottom to give us additional ways to slide Multiple Man and Vulture around the board to make them bigger. And then obviously we still have Deathlock and Venom as 3 energy destroy cards. We also get to fit Carnage into the mix as well for a touch of added consistency. Thanks for making it all the way to the end of the video. Make sure you're subscribed here on YouTube to the Marvel Snap channel so you don't miss any of these other fantastic community spotlights for upcoming new Marvel Snap card releases. If you enjoyed my personal deck ideas and breakdowns here today, make sure you follow me on my channels as well, twitch.tv/Jeff Hoagland and youtube.com/Hoaglandia Snap. This beauty I have in front of us here is a special treat for folks that watched all the way to the end, is the Season Pass Daken variant that you will get for achieving level 50, and it looks phenomenal here with the Infinity Split, doesn't it?